Good afternoon, everyone. We are live at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's 54th Annual Legislative Conference here in the Impact Podcast studio. My name is Adia, of course, and I am here joined with Teresa Hodge. So we are having a good conversation about what it means to start from scratch. So, Teresa, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you're from Maryland, but you have a very interesting story, a very interesting nonprofit, but you also have a podcast that you want to talk a little bit about.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me.
You
It
are
is
welcome.
amazing being here, loving the energy here at the Congressional Black Caucus. So my name is Teresa Hodge, and I served a 70-month federal prison sentence. And after serving that 70-month federal prison sentence, I came home and I had to rebuild my life from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not, just it's not a cute little title. I know what it's like to have to start all the way over. It is not easy, but for me, I feel like I'm just a representative of what is possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard work, but with hard work and dedication, and in many cases, the support of community, individuals who have arrest or conviction records are doing amazing things.
Right. So, you know, I I love hearing about your story, and I really wanted you to talk about it because when you hear it at first, you're just trying to put together the pieces in your head, like, what does it mean to start from scratch? When you think about somebody who's been incarcerated and they come home, you think about the celebrations and the parties, but you don't necessarily think about, depending on their sentence, how much the world might have changed in that short period of time or a long period of time. So tell me a little bit about what it felt like for you to make that kind of transition, and then how that led you to creating this podcast, and where is it being aired?
Okay. So, one, I went to prison in 2006, 5 days before Steve Jobs launched the iPhone, the smartphone. And so for me, while I was sitting in prison, the world was changing. And there was this big technology boom happening, and I didn't understand it. People were talking about, people were tweeting. I didn't know what a tweet was, because technology is a contact sport.
Correct.
And so I had already lost house, bank accounts and things like that.
Okay.
But in this moment, I felt like I was losing a sense of person. Like, how do you come home
Correct.
and rebuild life? And, how do I engage with technology? The only good thing was I was tech savvy before I went to prison.
Good. Okay.
And so for me, I knew that technology was going to be the tool that I was personally going to use to get my life back on track.
Mm-hmm.
I am an advocate for more people using technology to get their life on track.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an advocate for service providers and our government using technology to help people who are coming home from prison to be able to get their lives on track. We use technology to solve some of the world's biggest problems.
Right.
And yet, when it comes to reentry, it's like we're in the 20th century still.
Yes. And understanding, like, just how, the podcast generation, I call it, has completely boomed, right? When you think about podcasting, social media are two of the different types of media that are fairly unregulated in a way. How does that, or what does that look like for you when you have left, come back home, and then you're now trying to launch this amazing opportunity, but it also affects and also incorporates the those who are formerly or currently incarcerated? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so what it looks like for me today is today inside of prison facilities, there are iPad-like tablets.
Okay.
And so I am fortunate enough to have my From Scratch podcast to be aired on the largest prison telecom company, Inventive Technologies, Securus. And so From Scratch is on there. And so every day, 500,000 plus individuals who are currently incarcerated have an opportunity to have a reflection of someone who has been sitting
Correct.
on a bunk just like them and understand what it's like to build. I bring other individuals who have rebuilt their lives from scratch on, because I may not be someone who they can identify with personally, because our paths were different.
Right.
But I try to make sure that I bring many faces and many pathways that people have chosen for that. Podcasts are how a lot of people are consuming information today, how they're learning everything. And so right now, the opportunity is not only to be entertained by a podcast, but also to get really important structured and trusted guidance.
Okay. So, I've been talking to people recently. We've had a couple of episodes earlier about just integrating technology into the way that we even teach kids, right? When we teach children about how to use technology safely, right? And how do you use technology to get the right information? You know, the podcast that you're creating, what would that have done or helped you back then?
Oh my God. I wish I would. I build what I wish I had
Nice.
constantly. That's it. Everything that I built is around this was a solution that would have benefited me.
Got it.
If I could have sat in prison and, realized that I could do nothing about yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
but I had an opportunity to take advantage of every minute that I was sitting in prison
Mm-hmm.
and to learn information. And in this case, to have a window into the world.
Right, because now you would have understood the tweeting.
Absolutely, a little bit more. Somebody could have showed it to me, especially with video podcasting, right? Because there's
Exactly.
audio podcasting, there's video podcasting.
Mhm.
So just the opportunity for someone to be able to look and see, and as close as you can while you're in prison to almost
Right.
touch
Correct.
something because the tablet's in your hand, so they can touch that. So I think that it would have made a tremendous difference. It would have given me some information and insights as to what was possible. What are people doing who are sitting on a bunk, who sat on a bunk a year ago? What are they doing today? What are some of those opportunities? And so podcast also allows for us, like we started our podcast last year, so we're always able to provide new and relevant content for people.
Correct. So can you name like maybe one or two people you've had on the show? I think sometimes people, don't quite understand the value of seeing somebody that looks like them, number one. But then two, understanding that titles don't always mean what we think they should mean, right? Sometimes it's a human component of knowing that this person really values the work that they do, but then also the impact that they have on other people.
Absolutely.
So, can you tell me a little bit about some of the people you have on the show?
Yeah. So one person in particular, his name is Saad Solomon, a good friend of mine, lives in Delaware. Went to prison, I believe, when he was 17 years old because he created or committed a violent crime. He was in prison for, I want to say 17 years. So he came home, like the whole world had shifted
Completely.
And he went to prison as a child, came home as an adult. He tried getting jobs. He had to work 2 and 3 jobs, and his only complaint was after working 2 or 3 jobs, the 2 or 3 jobs still just didn't pay the bills. He then started a landscaping business. His landscaping business took off, and in a short period of time, he was making millions of dollars.
Wow.
Was employing other justice impacted people and was taking on great work. A few years later, somebody came and bought his business from him.
Wow.
And Saad had what people call an exit, which means he built a business, somebody purchased it. He went on to be the first person to serve, I believe, in the Obama administration in the parole department.
Mm-hmm.
So he was able to get a government job,
Right.
supporting other people who've come home. And since then, he's just done so many amazing things. But again, Saad is someone who a lot of people could identify with because they went to prison a little bit younger and some of the communities that he has come from. So he's just a remarkable example of what's possible.
So, I love to hear those kind of success stories that allow you to understand that there is life on the other side, right? When you think about what happens when you are 17, you are sometimes tried as an adult, right? Depending on where you are, you're starting from scratch, not just in the physical material things, but even your relationships with your family,
Absolutely.
right? Because not everybody comes to visit you.
Right.
Not everybody writes. So even this podcast in itself provides a human component to I still matter, I'm still relevant, I'm still here.
We come to visit you.
Yes, because we come to visit. You're like the TV inside the prison system that allows people to understand that we have not forgotten about you. We have not forgotten you. So, I guess the other question to you is like, what else is next for the podcast? Like, how do you expand on the current format that you have to be even more impactful? Or is it just a matter of showing and storytelling, other people?
No, we are at a place today where we're really considering what does the next generation of our podcasting look like, because the world of podcasting is booming in
Correct.
ways that it wasn't booming when we started ours.
Right.
And so I can tell you what's on my heart today is the world is changing. We're talking about globalization. So I don't want to just talk about reentry, getting jobs. We have a lot of information about that. We're going to continue to put that kind of information. But I want to make sure that people are thinking about how to come home and connect to this world.
Correct.
Right? Because the job you get may not be in the zip code where you live.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's all this information about blockchain, Web3, crypto, and people don't know what to do. We don't know what's right.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that we're giving people information so that they can process it, so they can understand. And then also where their family members or their support networks
Mm-hmm.
can connect to websites and other resources and have information and be able to validate it for them.
Right. And that also brings another level of connectivity, because for the rare phone call or the often phone call that you just have while you're there, you can say, you know, Mom or Auntie, I just saw this thing.
Absolutely.
You should log in or watch this podcast, and it's outside of the walls, right?
Mhm.
So now you have this third party to a degree
Mhm.
that's providing information, but providing a connectivity for everybody. I love that.
And we call it a companion service because it gives the person who's supporting this person an opportunity to hear what they're hearing,
Right.
to see what they're seeing, and for them to have relevant connection.
Right. And I can see it, you know, I'm a real big component about like family dynamics changing the way that you see the world, right? So I can imagine this being a similar situation where, you know, the family says tune in at a certain period of time, or, you know, tune in at 3 on this podcast network, because people need to understand that there is a community.
Absolutely.
And there's a culture attached to this community,
Absolutely.
right? Because people think that, oh, prison culture is just this linear. It's not linear.
No.
It's not linear. So people have to understand that there is stuff that they need to know. There needs to be ways that you can support them. It may not be the phone call. It may not be commissary. It may not be putting money on the books. There are other ways to support them that don't
and prepare for them.
Prepare for them, right? Because then you have to think about what happens when they come home. But you have a better understanding of what kind of information they've been listening to because you've been tuning in the podcast.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about like what, you know, when you ask people to support, what does support of your organization look like?
Yeah. So support for us, especially for this podcast, looks like corporate sponsorship.
Okay.
It looks like corporations who feel like they have an offering that would make sense on day one for someone.
Okay.
You know, to be able to get their lives back on track.
So what does that look? So give me some, maybe not corporations, but kind of like the services that they would need.
Yeah. So individuals who are coming home, obviously they need the same thing that most folks need: housing.
Okay.
They need transportation.
Okay.
They need a job.
Right.
They need a little extra money in their pockets.
Okay.
And actually, they just need someone to care about them, to know that there's people in this community that cares, whether it's faith-based centers or just other communities and places where they can go and connect.
And so now I'm going to actually do an appeal real quickly, because you've now heard what she's mentioned, right? So if you are out there, you have a service that you know can be, that can provide some support, some services, you know, we want you to feel comfortable with reaching out. So I'm going to turn it back to her. How can people reach you?
Yeah, well, you can find me at teresayhodge.com. That's Teresa, TERESAY, Hodge, HODGE.com.
Okay. And I want to also just make sure that we mention the fact that there are going to be a number of continual efforts to get additional podcasting. Whenever you decide that you're going to kind of make the shift, that will be announced on her station.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to just talk about a little bit is just for you. What was the kind of support that you got when you got home?
I was fortunate. I took a loving mother and a loving daughter to prison.
Okay.
And my family supported me. One of my sisters gave me every week. She saved $5 to put $5 on a Metro card. And when I came home, I had $500 worth of Metro.
Wow.
So for the first year, I didn't have to worry about using public transportation. My mother gave me a place to live. And more importantly, they just loved me and allowed me to come back and to reestablish the dignity. Mm-hmm. You know, my mother always saw me as her daughter. My daughter always saw me as her mother. And that
Right.
was the greatest gift.
Right. And I want to just make sure that we understand that as we are seeing more people being able to come home, that we understand that the gift of family, the gift of community is far more important than anything that you can put on the books.
Absolutely.
Far more than anything that you can write in your letter, but having that kind of support is important. So tell me one time where people can find your podcast and where can people find you as we close.
Yeah. So we are on YouTube. We are fromscratch.com. And again, my name is Teresa Hodge. You can find me on the internet. I'm Teresa Y. Hodge everywhere.
Fantastic. It's a pleasure having you. Thank you.